Yo, what is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Jets Giants show. We are here midweek for an emergency broadcast. What is up, Jets Nation? What is up, Giants Nation? I am here with Walt and I am here with Gabe. Say what's up, y'all.
Peace, peace, peace.
What's up, people?
Yeah, and I am Jose, as y'all know. And before we get into the emergency broadcast, please remember to on this because this is a big one today. Emergency broadcast. The head coach of the New York Jets, Robert Saleh, was fired this morning. And that's it. Just Robert Saleh. So let's jump in. I actually kind of want to ask our resident Giants fan who has the least amount of emotions attached to this. What do you think? Let's just start with like the firing of Robert Saleh, and then we can get into
Initial reactions,
and
no.
all that. Yeah.
So I was driving, and as I always do, I listen to sports radio while I'm driving and stuff, and it comes over the waves that Robert Saleh has been fired, and of course, if it's coming over the radio waves, it's confirmed. I don't need to look it up anywhere. So immediately I pick up the phone and I call Walt and I let him know, like, yo, bro, they just fired Robert Saleh. And the shock, I'm still actually in shock. I know how I feel about the whole situation. I have my thoughts, I have my theories, conspiracy theories, you name it. I have them all in my head. But I'm actually still in shock. I can't believe that they've done this. It's very unjet like, and at the same so jet like to do what they did. And I just, it's one of those things that's a little bit too fresh. There's too many things going around surrounding this whole firing and the whole nine, and we won't really know what effect this has on the Jets until the smoke clears. All we have are just the emotions that we're feeling right now. The main emotion, it's kind of like, what the fuck. So, how do you guys feel about it?
It's a solid emotion to feel. Walt, what about you?
So, yeah, I was at work. I was busy crunching numbers and stuff like that, and I got a call from Gabe, and Gabe was like, "Are you sitting down?" And so, like, my first thing was like, "Oh my gosh, did something happen? Is this a personal crisis or whatever?" And he's like, "Dude, Jets just fired Robert Saleh," and I'm like, "What the fuck?" You know what I'm saying? So the first thing I did was I went on Twitter, I went on, Facebook, I went on Instagram, I checked all the news sites, and at first I didn't see anything, so I thought he was trolling me. But then it started to trickle in, and I'm like, what the hell? So my first thought was, this makes no fucking sense. You know what I'm saying? Especially when they said that, the interim coach was going to be Jeff Ulbrich, because Saleh's a defensive coach, Ulbrich is a defensive coach. The problem is not defense; it's the offense. You know what I'm saying? And so my initial thought was like, this makes no sense. And I happen to like Ulbrich. I think he's a great coach. The players respect him and all this other stuff. But it just felt like it was a weird transition. The timing was off. I kind of thought this could happen after the Bills game, but I realistically maybe a couple of weeks afterwards, because half the league is 2-3 and 3-2. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like, this was a team that was 0-5 and not get, literally we're playing for first place on Monday. So at the time it just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, this kind of became a little bit of a tale of where were you when Salah got fired, right? So like I was here in this office. I was also working. I work from home, so I was sitting in front of my computer, and I got a text from my good friend who is a Vikings fan, coincidentally, and he texted me, "I'm in a meeting right now, but I just saw the headline that the Jets have fired Salah." He was also at work. His next text saying, "You're welcome." I can't believe they actually did it mid-season, but honestly, it couldn't happen soon enough. So that's like, yeah, my tale of where I was when Salah got fired and how I found out, because I immediately went on to confirm it in social media and ESPN and all the Yahoo Sports app and all those great places that you have to try to confirm these things quickly. And yeah, it quickly spread from that point. Um, and yeah, I guess my first thought was also like, obviously, what the fuck? It seemed like the timing. It still seems like the timing is off. Like you said, Walt, maybe a better time would have been after we found out what we could do against the Bills, right?
Yeah, it
Like,
just
well,
doesn't make sense.
just
I'm on
after this.
record saying that I don't agree with, like, I agree with firing Salah. I don't agree with firing him at any point during the season.
Yeah, I
But
mean, if the season kept going anywhere near the way that it was going, and ended, say, 7-10 again, theoretically, or 8-9, or just short of a playoff run with this team, you figure Salah is gone, right? But the fact that yeah, we all kind of seem to agree that the timing of it is a little bit strange, like doing it at this particular point. And yeah, like, to get to who's replacing him, like, well, like you said, you know, Ulbrich is a fantastic coach, but also a defensive coach. And if you're trying to fix problems with the offense, you get all these kinds of rumors of how that was going to happen. But if you're trying to fix problems with the offense, you figure that you might promote offensive coach, or I think you mentioned the special teams coach Boyer, right? Like
Yeah,
somebody who had a bit more experience on the offensive side of things.
yeah.
And yeah, like moving straight to Ulbrich maybe doesn't make sense. What do you guys think about like hiring a defensive coach as the replacement? Gabe, what do you think?
so it's less about the fact that they hired a defensive coach, and it still kind of, to me, goes into um not understanding not understanding why the firing took place, simply because
Hmm.
um as you noted, you guys are about to play for the first place spot, in the division. The one thing that you shouldn't have in this crucial week is a distraction, and there could not be a bigger distraction and a bigger dysfunction than firing the head coach, regardless of who you replace him with, because whoever you put in that role now has to take on a multitude of responsibilities. The head coaching duties are not they're not it's not a small bag of duties that they're accountable for. And it's one thing to be a defensive coordinator. It's another thing to be a defensive coordinator and the head coach of all the other coaches on this team. How that's going to impact, Jeff Ulbrich, I don't exactly know. I know that we do have a video of him talking about kind of like a little bit of a glimpse of what it takes to be a head coach. I don't know if you want to play that video real quick, Walt, so we can kind
Yeah,
of hear that out.
Yeah,
yeah.
let
Let's
me
go
let
ahead
me
and take a look at
put it up there.
what he said. You said, Walt, this is a clip
The
of
transfer portal.
the Senior Bowl, right? Him talking about coaching the Senior Bowl.
Right. So for the Senior Bowl, usually they pick coaches, and it's not only an opportunity for players to get like an NFL experience, but it's also an opportunity for coaches to kind of feel what it's like to run a team. And so this past year, Jeff Ulbrich was the head coach of one of I think the North or the South, I can't remember who it was.
One of the things.
Yeah, but this was one of his comments, which it's ironic that he's talking about this. Let's just play it here.
Because of all the NIL and the transfer portal and the whole thing, and so you don't know what to anticipate as far as the attitude of the kids, and it's been amazing. These kids came in with such humility and hunger to learn and eagerness, and so it's been an extremely fun and productive week, rewarding week in a lot of ways. You guys got any questions?
You touched on it a little bit. I know this week is about the players and them taking their next step in their journey, but what was this week like for you, and what did you take out of it as a coach?
No, I had a blast. It forced me to kind of look at things from a global perspective, and as far as scheduling and all the little things that you never pay attention to as an assistant coach. So very cool in that way, that it challenged me to look at the game in a different way. And yeah, it makes me excited about what could be, for my future in some ways.
So, so it's interesting because he ended that with like a very exciting about what it could be for his future. So,
Right.
and now that future is now. But there's a lot to this, man. I think I'm not super thrilled with it. And one of the main reasons I'm not thrilled with it is because of the reaction, the rumored reactions. Obviously, we're not in the locker rooms, we're not in the facility, but the
Right.
rumored reactions by the entire team is that they were completely caught off guard and in shock. Which tells me that if they're in shock, it means that they didn't necessarily think that he was the problem.
Right.
Because if he was a problem, some of them would be like, okay, I saw that coming. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And so that's kind of the thing that weirds me out about this whole thing, is because first of all, Robert Saleh, we've kind of seen a breakdown in Robert Saleh. Like Robert Saleh, when he was in San Francisco, he was a rah-rah type of guy. He was, very energetic and stuff like that. And you can see that there was a transition when he became the Jets head coach, where, the expectation that was that he was supposed to be the CEO and all this other stuff, right? And so you almost wonder if in him trying to kind of fit that role, he lost a little bit of himself. And you started to see the breakdowns in Salah, especially last year, because there was this blind faith to Zach Wilson. And he was always trying to say, Zach is gonna be good. And in some cases, he kind of threw his defense under the bus, because it's like, well, I'm protecting Zach so much that, the defense, you're forcing them to say you got to play perfect. And so there was little cracks. And this entire year, his press conferences have been horrendous. He's been saying all the wrong things, and a lot of the um facial expressions and the body movements and stuff like that on the sideline, where it's like, he's got that deer caught in headlights look when things aren't going right. These are all things that maybe it doesn't matter in terms of coaching and stuff, but people see these things, players see these things, right? And so you kind of feed off, there's that little negativity that he's bringing to the sideline, especially when things aren't going right. And the whole thing with the cadence, and then Quincy Williams talking about how you need accountability from top to bottom.
Right.
Those are the things that kind of really put that nail in the coffin. But I really, really did think this was going to be maybe a month down the line, maybe a month and a half. I mean, if things went really, really bad on Monday, then maybe. But honestly, what does this do for the Jets, really? I mean, unless Ulbrich unlocks Hackett, or maybe he makes a change and says, you know what, Todd Downing, you're going to be the one doing the play calls. But like,
You probably won't.
I'm
Probably won't do
still trying
that.
to figure out how this helps. You know what I'm saying?
It's
That's
like
my
a Mark Davis, like a Raiders move, but without like the teeth, getting rid of like a couple other people, like really
Yeah.
cleaning a little bit of house and saying like a
yeah,
whole aspect of this team is not working. Uh, so like you're out the door, like.
yeah, and
But
and you
it didn't work for the Raiders anyway, even so. Like it
know,
doesn't really matter if you do something like that necessarily. It's
but
just an ill-timed maneuver. It seems to be.
here's the thing, and this is the thing that really drives me nuts, is that this is really the first year of the Aaron Rodgers experiment, right? And you look at other situations, like for example, I've heard this a lot today, where they were talking about Brady's first year with the Bucks. It was a rough,
Yeah,
first
it
year,
was. Yeah.
and they didn't get it together until the bye week, which was like week 11, and that was when Coach Arians kind of really got on Brady and said, "Hey, you guys got to get this together." You know what I'm saying? Robert Saleh didn't get that. You know what I'm saying? He got 5 games of Aaron Rodgers. He didn't have the opportunity to have this kind of gel together and stuff. And like I said, it's a weird thing. I do like Ulbrich. I do like the choice of him. But you kind of also put him in a negative because he's literally got like days to prepare for Monday night, Josh Allen and the Bills, on top of trying to learn a brand new job. Oh, by the way, who's going to be the defensive coordinator?
Well, that's the thing. It's going to be. I think he's going to still be running defensive coordinator duties. But, it's funny that you were talking about, Rob Saleh never really getting the chance to actually like figure this team out with Aaron Rodgers, stuff like that. The truth is that as much as I've hated on him, and not hating on him as a person, but in the role of head coach and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
sure.
not my kind of head coach, that I would want as a Giants fan. I'm a Parcells, Dable kind of guy, rough and like, I don't give a crap, like that kind of guy. But that doesn't mean that Robert Saleh couldn't have been good. But let's talk about the fact that Rob Saleh, his entire tenure, he's been kind of hamstrung. Zach Wilson is not the quarterback that he wanted. We know that. Hackett is not the OC that he wanted either. But they kind of shoved that down his throat for the sake of Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers being here with Hackett obviously makes it impossible for him to actually even run the team or even lead the team because of how big of an ego Aaron Rodgers has. So it's really like, basically Robert Saleh, was able to, he chose Ulbrich, and, Ulbrich said today on his press conference, that
Good
first
press conference, by
year,
the way.
defensively, they were terrible, and Robert Saleh still believed in him and gave him another chance and gave him the tools to be who he is today from a defensive coordinator position. So this is
Right.
why I'm worried about how this is going to affect your defense if Ulbrich has to divide his attention from coordinating the defense and then coordinating the rest of the team. But Robert Saleh, the only place that he was free to be who he wanted to be as a coach was in the defensive side of things. Because he didn't get to choose his OC. He didn't get to choose the quarterback, whether it was Zach Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. What else was he supposed to do other than be a PR guy in a position where he's basically PR for, Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, what's he supposed to say when they ask him about the Egypt trip? The honest truth.
know,
Yeah, an excuse
Yeah.
absence. It sucks, but it is what it is. What do you expect from him? So I feel like
I
he
think the
did the best he
defense.
could do with the hand that he was dealt with.
I don't know. Like I think the timing is suspect. I think the defense is going to be fine. I think the defense it might have hiccups here and there. We'll see what happens against Buffalo with a, like half brain dead Josh Allen with the way they're throwing that poor kid out there. Or like let's see if maybe they go to the bench to like actually maybe do the right thing after him getting a concussion on the field. But I think the defense will be okay. I think that was as maybe not as much a product of Ulbrich as Saleh, but I think that it's clear that Ulbrich learned a lot of things and a lot of about the system that he's going to employ defensively from Robert Saleh, and maybe a little bit of vice versa because I think Ulbrich is a good defensive coach. I think the thing that doesn't make me cry too much about this is that when you talk about like Zach Wilson and how he handled the Zach Wilson situation, like that's actually kind of a microcosm for me about what was wrong with Robert Saleh and why he might not have been able to get there, like your Brian Dables and your Parcells, because Saleh mishandled Zach Wilson in every aspect of the game, on the field and off the field, from start to finish, and the problem with Saleh was, I think, his over reliance on coddling players to get the best out of them.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see if it's
Yeah,
like
he's a
the tougher
coddler,
personalities
that's
of
for
guys
sure.
like Ulbrich that brought that out of the defense, maybe, right? And maybe we'll see that out of the offense if he can challenge them in the same way. We don't know anything about how he's going to coach, but like you look at how the Zach Wilson situation was, and I mentioned this on the podcast before, like how he handled benching him with Mike White was complete nonsense, with players on the team wearing Mike White t-shirts after one game, like effectively like burying Zach Wilson's career after a game or two, like his own teammates doing that to him and Robert Saleh not doing anything about it to coddle them. Okay, forgetting about coddling his other player. It's all about coddling to me, coddling the players as is what Robert Saleh seemed to do. And I guess we're going to find out more about that with Ulbrich being the coach now. But I think that's why, even though the timing is shit, maybe, and maybe we'll see some sort of inspiration, a la, I want to say, Antonio Pierce, at least for a couple of games. But with a more talented team, I think, than the Raiders, maybe we'll see something come of this. But the chances are not very good that it doesn't happen when coaches get replaced mid-season. Teams do not go to the playoffs. I think I saw a statistic just earlier today that's never happened in NFL history. But
yeah, it does.
I don't know.
It does not help. It has never helped. No one's ever been successful replacing a coach mid-season. And the other thing too is that this isn't even mid-season. It's 5 weeks in, and you guys are 2-3, second place in the division. It doesn't make any. My thing is that, like, if it doesn't, like,
we have room to make mistakes, right?
It only hurts, in my opinion. I don't see how it helps in any way. And it only hurts because of dysfunction. Like I said, I think that they should have let him go before the even preseason. So let's say somebody comes in, because the issue is a culture issue. It's a culture of, like, discipline. It's a culture or lack of discipline. It's a culture of lack of accountability. It's a culture of coddling. You fix that during preseason training camp and all that stuff. You don't fix that mid-season. If you're fixing that mid-season, you're only able to do that if the season is already lost. If it's like, all right, well, we're not going anywhere, so let's try to fix this culture now. Let's see if we can make something happen now with the culture and all that, because we can't keep going. But you guys are not out of it. So
no, we're right there.
Very much in it.
Yeah,
like literally just out of the playoffs, right?
It's a dysfunctional team, and you just made it even more dysfunctional.
So let me ask this question, because there's a couple of things that I wanna touch upon before we wrap up this emergency podcast here. First of all, we talk about how Saleh is ultimately he's the head coach, so ultimately he's the one to blame, right? That's just the way it goes. You know what I'm saying? Just like a quarterback, if you win, he gets all the accolades. If you lose, it's all his fault, right? And I think Jose said that last week, right? But the thing about it is that there's two things here at work, right? You're during this off season, we heard that Saleh wanted to fire Hackett, and that didn't happen. And then you heard during preseason that, you know what, maybe I'm going to be more involved in the offense. Hackett, we're going to remove some of his responsibilities, and we're going to give Todd Downing. It's going to be more of a collective instead of just Hackett being the guy that's play calling, right? We heard that. It didn't seem that happened, right? And, the interesting part about this whole thing right now, we haven't heard a single thing about Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas, the general manager of the New York Jets, who in most teams is the guy that fires the head coach. He's been absent because guess what? I don't think he had a say in this.
Well, no, we know he didn't have a say in this. It's already came out.
Woody Johnson just woke up and said, hey, you know what? This guy is out of here. And so the thing about it is that we have to remember, though, Woody Johnson during the offseason prior to the start of preseason, he did have a quote unquote mandate, right? He didn't say that you had to make the playoffs. He didn't say you had to be in the Super Bowl, but he said the play has to improve, right? Maybe that had something to do with this, but again, very, very impulsive on his part. And I know what you're going to say. This is Aaron Rodgers and his grubby little hands on it. I really don't think that that's the case.
Well, who's the last person that we know of that Woody himself admitted to? Who's really the last person that he spoke to?
Yeah,
before he woke up and made the decision.
But let me ask you this, Gabe. Okay, and let's put it this way. First of all, there's been much made about the push, the shove during the Patriot game and stuff like that. That seems to be nothing, because one Jets drive showed them afterwards in the locker room hugging, right?
Yeah.
But let me ask you this: what does it serve Aaron Rodgers on conceivably his last season to get the head coach fired and kind of put this team in disarray because you're bringing on a guy who has zero experience as a head coach. He's going to be learning on the job. How does that help Aaron Rodgers?
Right.
If anything, it makes it worse for him because now you don't have that consistency. So for all the people that say Aaron Rodgers was the one behind this, to me, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
The reason I say that is because Aaron Rodgers doesn't make sense whatsoever. Aaron Rodgers is an eccentric kind of guy. He doesn't do things the way that anybody else in football conventionally does things, including how he likes to run his offense, really, because we already know that like it's not Hackett that's running the offense, it's Rodgers, and Hackett is his assistant. But a couple things. We know for a fact that Woody spoke to Aaron Rodgers. He admitted that without anybody asking him if he spoke to Aaron Rodgers.
No, somebody did ask him.
They asked him, if I'm not mistaken, they asked him if Aaron Rodgers had anything to do with this decision.
Right.
He said no. He could have left it at that. But he did say, I did have a conversation with him last night. Come on, man.
But
He's not a PR guy, so
let me jump in here.
Go ahead and admit that we know that like you don't have to have. He doesn't have to outwardly say like, "Hey, you got to fire Robert Saleh," but you know, influence can be gotten there. And
but
then
that's a problem with the Jets. That verbal diarrhea. People don't know how to keep their mouth shut in that building. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but in this sense, now we know. You know, and the other thing too, we hear the rumor that 5 minutes before he got fired, Robert Saleh gave play calling duties to Downey.
Sure, but okay. So hold on here. Let's think about this like logically a little bit more, other than the fact that that Aaron Rodgers is eccentric and Aaron Rodgers maybe didn't like Robert Saleh, unless there's a personal vendetta involved. Logistically, like. What is the reason to get the defensive head coach fired? The defense is not the problem. Defense has not been the problem at all since Aaron Rodgers has played there. So the offense has been the problem. The offense is the problem. The offense is the clear problem. Okay, Nathaniel Hackett is your buddy. Fine. But, like, again, unless there's some specific personal vendetta, like, what does it serve you to get the defensive head coach, the defensive-minded head coach fired when he's, from what I even saw, like from a report by Rich Eisen earlier talking about this, Robert Saleh was so uninvolved in the offense that I think this morning or yesterday is the first time that he walked into a fucking offensive meeting, which to me is actually kind of an appalling thing to hear.
That's not true, like because they asked Aaron Rodgers specifically, what is it like? How does Robert Saleh interact with you in the offense? And the thing they said, what I like about Robert Saleh is that he's in our QB meetings so that he can learn more about our offense, so that he can also help us prepare, from a defensive standpoint. We know that. So he is involved, at least from sitting in those meetings.
QB meetings are probably different from offensive meetings, but either way, I can send you the clip later. Is what Rich Eisen said, and I remember very pointedly hearing it. Okay, and Rich Eisen's a pretty good source about these kinds of things. He could be wrong, but like he's not involved very intimately in the offense. I don't think from really any standpoint. Like I said, unless he just truly hates Robert Saleh with a fiery passion, like beyond what like he hated his last head coach. He hates him that much in 1 year of watching another quarterback play and 6 games of actually playing with him. Well, then, okay, I'll give it to you. But to me, I'll leave it at that. It kind of doesn't make sense.
I'm not saying, and I don't think that it's that he hates him, but let's role play a little bit. You're Aaron Rodgers, and you're coming off of this game, the loss to the Vikings and stuff like that. I'm Woody Johnson. I call you at this time, 8:30 or 9 o'clock on Monday night, and I ask you, hey, Aaron, tell me what do we need to fix? What's the problem? Okay, like who do I need to let go? Or maybe not even ask you who do I need to let go, but like, can you point to something that we need to fix? Are you going to admit that it's Hackett?
I don't know.
And that's the thing. So
why would you get
more like?
But why wouldn't he? You know what I'm saying? If he's
Aaron Rodgers is not going to throw his boy under the bus.
But if he's so eccentric and he's so weird and stuff like that, and clearly, I'm pretty sure he understands, that the play calls that he's getting are vanilla, and leading to him coming up to the line with 5 seconds left on the clock, getting all these delay of game penalties. I mean, supposedly Zach was his mentor, the kid that he was mentoring, that he put under his wing and stuff like that. They easily let him go. You know what I'm saying? Randall Cobb is a guy that he's been his friend like forever. I think he was like a best man for him and stuff like that. The Jets let him go. So I mean, it's not like the Jets are
Sure.
beholden to a lot of the things that he does, because if that's the case, Bakhtiari would be here, Mercedes Lewis would be here, all his buddies from every single era of his thing would be here.
Okay,
And they're not.
real simple
You
then.
know what I'm saying?
Real simple then. I'll ask you then, why is Nate Hackett still here then?
Because and this is going to
Because
sound weird.
like Cobb, it's easy to let go of Wilson, easy to let go of Cobb, easy to let go of these guys.
Right.
But the one guy that we all universally know,
Right.
you can point the finger to why they're bad.
And this is going to sound
completely
weird.
Untouched.
This is going to sound weird, and by no stretch in the in this universe, I'm defending Hackett, but to let go of Hackett after you spend an entire year and a half installing his offense, can you tell me another person in that building that has that same knowledge of that offense other than Hackett? If you put Todd Downing in that responsibility, you're changing the offense. That's going to set them back, another couple of weeks and stuff like that. So I can kind of see why they didn't get rid of Hackett. I really do want them to get rid of Hackett, because I think he's just pure garbage when it comes to calling a game and stuff like that. But I can see why they kept him. You know what I'm saying?
I don't, because for the same reason that you say that, like, he's the one that knows this offense the most. And clearly what he's showing you is that he doesn't know this offense, because you have good weapons. You have really great weapons that he doesn't know how to use them. So then it wouldn't make a difference to put somebody else in there if he's not using them to the best of their abilities.
But again, the other thing is, these guys have been together for 5 weeks playing actual
And then again, that's why I asked, what's the point of this firing?
Right. I
Jose
totally
hasn't
agree
chimed
with
in
you on
either,
that.
and I want to know where he's at
Woody
right now.
Johnson. Woody Johnson thinks that doing something at this point in the season. I mean, there's even some footage of either audio or footage of him talking about. You even mentioned it yourself. How he's been wanting to do this for years.
Yeah, that's the other thing too.
Years.
How do you he said that that the last 2 games had nothing to do with his decision, that he's been thinking about this now for a couple of years. So then why didn't you do it in the preseason or before the season started?
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. Maybe
it just doesn't track. It doesn't track.
It tracks more for the owner to do some nonsense like this than for the owner to necessarily say, like, I'm going to listen to what this player wants me to do. Who has a vendetta for this defensive-minded coach for no reason? I mean, I don't know. We'll never really know exactly how this happened. I don't believe that it was.
We haven't heard from Saleh yet, so
I'm
not going to say.
going on vacation.
Rodgers had nothing to do with it. But I'm going to say that he probably had very little to do with it in the end. Maybe a comment that he made.
I would bet money that he had influence.
I just wonder. I don't know. I just wonder how Douglas is taking all of this, because clearly he had the rug pulled out from under him. I don't think he had any idea that this was coming, because if he did, we'd have at least a press conference at this point saying, you know what, me and Woody, we sat down, we spoke about the temperature of the team and stuff, and we felt that this was. We haven't heard anything from Joe Douglas, which to me that means that dude had no input on this. He had no idea that this was coming, and how do you go forward running the team when your owner is literally pulling the rug right under your feet when it comes to the coach and stuff? You know what I'm saying?
I got thoughts on that too.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look at the very least.
Joe Douglas is on his last year of his contract anyway, and I think that Woody was probably kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna get rid of both of them. but you can't really get rid of the general manager right now just because, like, he's kind of inconsequential, sort of, right now.
I think
And then
this
to put
is
somebody
this
in place is tougher, I think.
well,
So, but then at the same time, this was Robert Saleh's last year also, and Robert Saleh's last year, on his contract. Oh, it looks like we lost Jose.
yeah.
So either way, it's Robert Saleh's last year on his contract too. So that's why for me, it's also kind of like, well, why don't you let him run out the rest of the year anyway? Again, that's why it just doesn't make any sense. For to
Right.
fire someone for the sake of firing, for the sake of like, oh, let me see if I jumpstart something. Man, I don't know. It just, I don't. I think it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't make a lot of sense,
None of it makes sense.
especially at the time when it happened, and we got Jose back.
Our host is
Sorry about
back.
that.
Yes, absolutely.
Apologies. Minor technical difficulties. I think I clicked on something there. I don't think that was a technical difficulty.
Hey,
But
listen, this is our first live show
Yeah,
on
it kind of
YouTube,
went awesome.
so I think we're doing pretty well so far. You know what I'm saying?
all right, we
So-
jumped right back in on the live after a quick technical difficulty. So sorry about that. What were you guys?
No.
Yeah.
I was just like saying that, like, Joe Douglas is on his last year of his contract. So
Yeah.
was Robert Saleh.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things that, like, I just like it. To me, it's even less of a reason to fire him. This is the end of his contract anyway.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense because he is inconsequential. He was, this, and you got to pay them anyway. You got to pay them through the end of the contract anyway. Like, it just makes even less sense to fire him when they're at the end of the contract. Joe Douglas is probably on the hot seat, which is why Woody went over him. Either that or he just doesn't respect him. And the last thing I wanted to say is that, like, what I'm starting to realize is that it's not the same old Jets. It's the same old Woody, because this is what the kind of crap that Woody does.
I agree.
When who was it? Who was the GM before Joe Douglas?
Wasn't it?
I forget his last name. I can't really ever, like, remember how to pronounce his last name. But what I know, huh?
John Itzik, I think it was.
No. It wasn't Itzik. I don't believe it was Itzik.
So you had Tannenbaum. You had Itzik. You're talking about coach or GM?
No, GM.
I think it was. I think it was Itzik. Well, no, probably not. Let's see. So, here we go.
Was it McCagnon?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
McCagnon.
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 Okay.
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Woody let him draft and then fired him, like, I think it was like 2 days later or 2 weeks later.
Yeah. So
like, why would you let him draft a bunch of players and then have somebody else take over all these players? Joe Douglas didn't draft these guys, and then he's got to deal with it.
So in that
case,
case,
this is the kind of thing that Woody does.
So in that case, what's going to happen is Joe Douglas is going to get through the trade deadline, and then he'll get fired.
Maybe. Maybe. We'll see if he gets Devontae Adams over here. But this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm realizing that in his 25-year tenure, as I've done my research recently, because I'm not a lifelong Jets fan at all. This is a lot more of, like, same old Woody versus same old Jets. And when I said that this feels like un-Jet-like, but also same old Jets at the same time, it's because of that. It's the Jets you guys love hanging on to really bad personnel.
Yeah.
You never let them go. But then if you're going to let them go, you do it at the absolute wrong time.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question as we close. Devontae Adams, does he want to get here? And did you
I think he'd be done if he comes.
Yeah, and did you hear Woody's entire press conference?
I heard a lot of it. I heard him basically get on his knees and beg Hassan Reddick to come.
Yes.
Oh my! How embarrassing, yes. Jose! Did you hear about this?
And just going back to the Douglas thing, you just undercut your general manager because the owner is begging Hassan Reddick to come here. So any type of leverage that Joe Douglas had, is gone because
Yeah,
he
it's
can
gone.
go and say, you know
That's
what?
true.
The owner loves me here. He literally told me to jump into a car and come down to Florham Park.
He said, and quote, "We'll escort you in."
I can't with this guy. You know what I'm saying? It is just so. Oh, and did you hear the thing? You got to call him Ambassador Johnson.
Can you explain that exactly? Because I saw you say that in the group chat, but I don't understand.
So I don't know if you remember, but when Trump was
Yeah, he was
president,
ambassador, yeah, but he wants to continue to. He wants to be called ambassador now.
it was in the press release where the Jets said Ambassador Johnson, and supposedly in the press conference he wanted to be addressed as Ambassador Johnson. Like, I literally think that piece of gold, he's OD'd from that gold and it's affecting his brain. You know what I'm saying?
Uh,
It's embarrassing with Woody Johnson right now.
well,
It really
Yeah.
is.
I'm gonna wish you guys luck. Like I said, I'm confident I'm confident in Joe Shane. I'm still, I'm gaining more confidence in Dable. As the weeks go by so far. Last game was a hell of a coach game, so he's getting a little bit more back into my good graces. But I am confident at least that I don't have to deal with this kind of crap.
Yo,
Yeah.
I'm
It's a
telling you.
mess. I mean, when you talk about culture, well, when you talk about like same old Jets, what you're always talking about when you're talking about any team, you're talking about same old whatever, you're talking about the owner, because that's where it starts, right? I mean, when a team is that badly run, it's the owner doesn't care about football, the owner cares too much about football. And I don't know. I think Woody Johnson doesn't actually care about football, honestly. So
No, but he says he's got 25 years experience. He knows about this stuff. So
yeah,
it's
no,
all good.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I definitely don't think so.
Maybe he thinks he's Jerry Jones and can be,
Jerry Jones
GM,
light.
owner,
Jerry
and all
Jones
that
light.
stuff.
You know?
Anyway,
He doesn't have that kind of influence on the NFL like a Jerry Jones or even a Mark Davis, like I mentioned earlier. Like, he could never be like that. And that maybe is the thing that Jets fans are going to have to deal with.
Swaggy Johnson. Swaggy
he
Johnson
can't.
with the big gold chain. Yeah, kid.
Yeah.
Tell me I don't know how to run this team.
Oh no.
Let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, it's a consequential day for Jets fans, a consequential day for New York football fans. Robert Saleh, we hardly knew ye this season, at least with this offense, with
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers. So rest wherever you are. You'll probably be San Francisco's defensive coach by the end of the week. They need help, but we'll see, and we'll see like how the Jets do after this week. Congratulations to Ulbrich.
Yes.
I wish you well. I wish you luck. I think you can be a good head coach. I'm just not sure if, like most other of the Jets quarterbacks before this, if we put you in the right situation to become one.
Yeah, he's gonna
I guess
be a
we'll see.
good head coach, just not with the Jets. That's how
We'll
I
see.
feel.
We'll see. We'll see how
Just
the
like the Jets
defense plays.
quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like the Jets quarterbacks.
We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see how the defense plays with him 50% on defense and 50%
Yeah, that's gonna
on
be
the rest
real
of the
interesting.
team. So,
That's gonna be super interesting.
anyway,
We'll see.
should wrap this up. No.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna say let's wrap this up because we got into a conversation about this, a longer conversation than we even figured we were gonna get
This
into.
is awesome.
But
I like it. I like going live.
So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us for this live. Those of you that tuned in to watch and watch us get used to doing this whole damn thing live and tuned into me clicking exit when I was trying to find comments or something like that somewhere because I don't know the system well enough. And tuning in to find out where we were when Robert Saleh got fired by Woody Johnson or Aaron Rodgers.
There you go.
They that will live in infamy.
Crazy.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in to the Jets Giants show. Please remember to like, rate, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. And as always, Gabe, go Giants.
Go Giants.
Go Giants. And go
And
Jets.
Go Jets, Jets, right?
Jets.
Just end the season.
Let's go. Go Jets.
Peace out, people.
Peace out.